And oil prices have jumped in response to the latest heated exchange between Iran and the US over the Persian Gulf and the critical trade route in the Strait of Hormuz. Washington says its airships will continue their missions in the region despite Tehran's warnings that they should stay away. Iran threatened to block oil shipments through the Strait of Hormuz if new Western sanctions hit its exports. Now, that threat came at the same time as the 10-day-long naval exercise we saw carried out, which showcased new aircraft and medium-range missiles. The US, whose ships are stationed in the area, maintains that it won't tolerate any hindrance of passage. Iran's already suffering from 4 rounds of sanctions, and the latest bill signed by President Obama on Monday saw its national currency drop by 10% to a record low. Let's take a look at the latest events, try and gauge what's happening, and go live to Beirut. There, Ali Rizk is an expert on Middle Eastern affairs. Ali, good evening. Thanks for being with us. Sanctions, as we've seen so many times, are a common enough tactic of the US and the EU. But in this particular case, are they really the right way of continuing to go about things, dealing with one of the world's top oil producers? It's kind of counterproductive, isn't it, for all parties involved, including Iran and the US and the EU?
Indeed, as you said, the oil prices now have increased. This comes at a time where both Europe and the US are witnessing a very, very dire economic situation, economic problems both in the US and Europe. And this latest step taken against Iran will only, of course, set the precedent for increasing economic problems for the West in general. But I think what you have to remember is that Barack Obama now is in election season, and he's trying to prove himself as worthy of containing what he might call the Iranian threat. You know that the Republican candidates, the nominees, are very much challenging Obama on his Iranian policy. And so Obama, I think, is trying to prove himself by showing that he can take these steps. At the same time, you also have to remember that there are American fears that Israel might unilaterally attack Iran. That is also a scenario which many people have predicted. And America is very much against any kind of military attack on Iran, particularly unilaterally. And so I think by taking this step, Obama, on the one hand, is answering his Republican challenges. On the other hand, he's trying to satisfy Israel, because Israel has said time and again that a non-military solution is not viable. So he's trying to show the Israelis, no, I'm able to contain the situation. My economic sanctions are effective sanctions, and so Israel, you have nothing to worry about. I think that is the approach which Obama is currently working on.
As we head into a new year, we kind of turn the clock back. Remember what happened in 2008? A similar kind of thing happened then. Iran threatened to close the Strait of Hormuz, Washington responding by saying if that happened, it'd be an act of war. What are the similarities between what we're seeing now and what happened then?
Well, there are similarities, of course, but I very much doubt that this will turn out into all-out military warfare between the US and Iran. You have to remember as well that there are constraints on the US now. For example, the Defense Secretary Panetta said that this week he will be presenting a strategy which decreases the budget of the Pentagon, which doesn't even allow for 2 ground wars simultaneously, the US to launch 2 ground wars at the same time. So there are restrictions right now on the US military, and so all in all, I don't see a scenario, an ending scenario of all-out military warfare. What I do see is that there will be continuous escalation, a continued Cold War between the US and Iran. However, I have to point out here to something else, which is the fact that the Turkish foreign minister is visiting Iran today, and we don't know what the agenda will be, but I'm quite sure it might be the fact that the Turkish foreign minister might be attempting to achieve some kind of midway solution. We all know that the Turkish Prime Minister Recep Tayyip Erdogan has a close relationship with President Obama, and so it's quite interesting, this visit by the Turkish foreign minister right now at this time. Could there be some kind of mediation efforts? Because as you said, it's not even in America's interest to continue with this situation, because it will affect the economic problems which America is already suffering from. So I do anticipate that there might be something interesting which comes out of the visit of the Turkish foreign minister Davutoglu to Iran, which will be today and tomorrow.
Well, you're right. Iran has indicated that it would like to start talks. It's written and said that to the EU, yet we haven't seen anything official coming back from the EU yet, timetabling any talks. Do you think we're going to see people getting around the negotiating table sometime soon this month?
That remains to be seen, but I think that there's no other choice but to go back to the negotiating table because, as I said, escalation won't serve any side whatsoever. We've seen the economic situation in Europe. There'll be a summit, I believe, very soon between the French leader and the German Chancellor, Angela Merkel, to discuss the economic situation. And so it's in nobody's interest to continue with this, and they have to head back to the negotiating table. Now, unfortunately, what has happened, just before I came into the studio, I heard news that the European Union has agreed in principle, I repeat, in principle, for an embargo on Iranian's oil. Now, will that happen in effect? Will they take this measure in practice? We'll see a meeting on January the 30th for the European Union regarding this matter. I doubt that will happen, and I believe from now until the end of this month, until the end of January, we might see some kind of a solution with players like Turkey coming in, as I said, trying to, of course, bring about a midway solution. Ali,
we're watching it closely. Thanks for your input and your thoughts about it. Middle East expert there joining us from Beirut on the line. Thank you.
Thank you.